Hello everyone and welcome to Good DIY Plans. I'm Vitali. Today we're going to be diving into one of my favorite DIY projects. This legit workbench has been one of my first builds in my shop from years ago, and I still use it regularly today. It's kind of like the heart of my workshop. It solves so many problems. It's my tool cart, my lumber cart, my transport cart, and most importantly, it's my building surface. It has been an upgrade from having to build things on the garage floor, bending over, feeling like my back would give out at the end of the day. This bench makes building super easy. Alright, now before we jump into the actual build process, let's briefly overview this bench and go over what makes it so special. This way you can see if this is what you're looking for and you can decide if you should continue watching this video. Alright, so firstly, the bench is standard height. I initially thought about making it counter height because I thought it would be easier to build on. Then I realized when I have things I'm actually working on, they do take up room too. And honestly, for me, being 6'1" is the perfect height. The overall dimensions are 96 inches by 48 inches by 29 3/4 inches tall, with the shelf at 14 1/4 inches. So if we turn the table over, we can see what the frame looks like and why this bench is so heavy duty and has lasted for so long. This bench can hold some serious weight because its frame is reinforced with 3 layers of 2x4s, and the whole thing rolls around on 4-inch polyurethane swivel plate casters with brakes, and each of those wheels has a 400-pound load rating. The table is really good at moving things from point A to point B in my shop. For example, from the cutting station to the planing station. It's also a really good lumber cart and lumber storage cart. When I would get a project from a customer, for example, I would just buy all the lumber at once, roll up the cart directly to the truck, and just load the workbench with the raw lumber. The top of the bench is pretty much leveled with the truck bed, so this made it really easy. And this workbench can handle 100 plus 2x4s in its storage shelf. Most of the boards I would work with were 8 foot long anyways, which fit in perfectly. And this was awesome because it left the top of the workbench empty so that I could continue working and utilize it for the actual build. The workbench is also a good place to store tools that are needed for a specific project. I know that each tool has its place in the shop, but when it comes to a specific project, like when I would get commissioned to build a patio set or a kid's playhouse or whatever, then I could just have the appropriate tools on hand and just store them underneath for quick access. My favorite part about this workbench is the ability to actually build things on it. First, it has a leveled surface. If you buy a 3/4 inch thick plywood sheet, it won't bend easily and it'll stay leveled. You can easily attach clamps at pretty much any place on the workbench top to hold lumber in place as you drill it, glue it, secure it with screws. This has been a real game changer for me as it allows me to make things so much neater. I don't have to rely on my body weight, for example, to keep things together as I secure them. I can use clamps and it's so ergonomic. The table height is just what I need, and I don't really do anything off the ground anymore. I build everything on the table unless it's a really big or bulky project. The table is also 8 foot long and it accommodates most projects. And one last important thing to mention is that the tabletop will go through wear over the years. What I love is that it's actually just a full plywood sheet. So this means that it can be easily replaced. If you just flip the plywood sheet after a year or so, you will have a brand new surface. You're getting so much value out of the bench worktop. It's just awesome. I flipped mine after about 5 years of use and I had a brand new surface to work on. After both sides are used up, just buy a new plywood sheet. Easy. And just a heads up for those of you looking to follow along closely, I do have the complete DIY plan available. I've spent quite a bit of time putting together images, detailed descriptions, the cut list, the shopping list, tools list, materials list, as well as helpful links. All of this is to make your building experience as smooth as possible. You can find the plan in the link below. Alright everyone, so let's go ahead and actually see how the bench is made, the workbench is made. First, you're going to start by cutting 4 24-inch 4x4 lumber pieces. These are going to be the legs of the workbench. You're going to need 3, 6, 9, 12, 89 inch 2x4 pieces. You're going to also need 8 41 inch 2x4 pieces. And you're also going to need, let's see, 3, 6, 9, and it looks like 12 38 inch 2x4 pieces. You will also need 2 full-size plywood sheets, 96 by 48, ideally at least 3/4 inch thick. Take the first plywood sheet and then just cut some notches into the corners, all 4 corners. These are going to be 3.5 inches by 3.5 inches, and you'll see how these work with the 4x4 legs that will go in through this area. Okay, so let's start building the frame of the workbench. So first you're going to need to take 2 89 inch 2x4 pieces and then 4, 5, 6 38 inch 2x4s. And then go ahead and use 3.5 inch screws and generous amounts of glue and just secure these in place at these distances. Okay, let's go ahead and continue to build up the frame. So you're going to add the next level or the next layer of the frame. So you're going to need 2 89 inch 2x4 pieces, 2 41 inch 2x4 pieces, and then use glue and in this case use 2.5 inch screws, because once you put them in you don't want them to show through to the other end. So 3.5 inch initially and now 2.5, and then you're going to add one more layer here. So you're going to need again 2 more 89 inch lumber pieces and then 2 more 41 inch lumber pieces. And in this case, use 3.5 inch screws because they won't show through, but you want it to be secure. And once you've got that, just go ahead and make a second identical frame. So these should be pretty solid pieces at this point. Okay, now to secure the legs to the frames that you just made, you're going to need to cut some spacers. These are 2 inches long 2x4 pieces, just from some of the scrap lumber that you're going to have from this project. And then go ahead and lay them out like this in a rectangular shape. You're going to put the 4x4 24 inch legs here as well, and then put your first frame directly on top of those spacers, and then the 4x4 legs into those grooves. Use generous amounts of glue for all of the areas that are going to be making contact with the post. So put glue on the ends here as well as on the post, just so that there's a good amount of glue, so it's a nice secure joint. Okay, now for this step you're going to use ratchet straps. So if you don't have one that's long enough to go all the way around, just use 2 and then hook them together. And basically what you're going to do with that is you're going to wrap this around the legs and then tighten it, but not super tight at this point, because you want to make sure that you're working on a leveled surface, and then that none of the legs are, higher or lower than the others. Everything has to be nice and leveled. Once you have everything in place, if you need to use a hammer, just kind of hammer things into place. Then go ahead and tighten the straps as tight as you can. They have to be really tight at this point, and then start adding these screws. So these are 3.5 inch screws, really important to pre-drill at this point. So use a countersink drill bit or just a drill bit to be able to pre-drill those holes, and then add 3.5 inch screws like that. And this will be for all 4 posts. Then with the help of a friend, flip the table over so it's standing like this, and you need to make sure that you're not putting pressure on the post as you're flipping them. So do it mid-air. The glue isn't dry yet and you haven't added all the screws, so it's not super strong at this point. But here, do the same thing. So pre-drill holes and then add 3.5 inch screws. At this point, if you're concerned about collision of screws or maybe your drill bit colliding with some of the existing screws that are already in there, just use an old drill bit or an old countersink drill bit, just so that you're not going to feel bad if you do end up hitting one of the screws. So go ahead and add that to all the sides, and take that plywood sheet that you've cut notches into, and then just go ahead and place it here, so it'll go right there. And then this plywood sheet you can secure with just screws, or if you'd like, you can also add glue. This is not the shelf that would or the surface that would typically be replaced. That would be the work surface. So just use 3.5 inch or 2.5 inch screws, add glue, and it should be secured. So there it is. Okay, now to add the next frame, just flip the table over again, and what you're going to do is make sure that the frame is flush with the 4x4 posts here, or 4x4 legs. And then, just like before, add generous amounts of glue. Make sure that you have it on all sides, and you're going to start adding screws. So add the straps like before, again loosely at first, hammer things into place or into submission so that it all goes into the correct spot. And then go ahead and add the 3.5 inch screws. Again, make sure that you pre-drill so that the wood doesn't split. And then, with the help of a friend, flip the table over. It should be pretty heavy at this point. And then go ahead and add those from the top as well. And then release the straps. And so at this point, you're going to add the workbench top. So it's just a full plywood sheet, 96 by 48. And then secure it in place using 3.5 inch screws or 2.5 inch screws. And I'm showing glue here, but I actually would not add glue here. The reason why is because you want this surface to be replaceable. You want to be able to turn it over when it's gone through some wear and tear, and you need a perfect and leveled surface once again. So all right, now let's go ahead and add the wheels to this workbench. So the wheels make it super useful, honestly. Without these wheels, it's just a table that's going to sit in the corner. So what I've done is I've used the wheels from Home Depot, and this model shows that they kind of overhang a little bit. They actually do that in real life. So what I did is I just kind of centered it as best as I could. And to secure the wheel to the leg, I actually used 4-inch long screws. Now these screws are thick. They're going to be really fat usually. So to make sure that this post does not split, because it's already not only is it holding the weight, but also these two frames are attached to it, you really need to pre-drill this here. So what I did is I used a nice thick drill bit, and I just marked the area here that I needed to pre-drill. Then I drilled those holes pretty much the entire depth of the screw, maybe left a little bit so I could still catch. And then I added these to the wheel so that it was nice and flush. And that way the wheels are going to stay in place and they're going to be able to do their job, and then you're not splitting that post. The reason why we left a little bit of space between, let's see here, the reason why we left that space of, let's see here, 2 inches is so that this 4x4 does not have that collision between the screws that are coming in through here and then the screws that are coming in from the wheel as well. So there's a little bit of a space, but you could use longer 4x4s if you want the table to be taller, or if you need that shelf to have a bigger gap. Okay, and then just some finishing touches. So here you're going to um, sand the wood so that it's nice, no splinters. I don't sand the plywood because I don't want to strip off any of the layers. I want it to remain flat. But you can do the edges a little bit just so that it doesn't catch your clothing, and so it looks nicer. So that would be it. Okay, that's it for our DIY workbench build. I hope you're feeling ready to take on this project. If you received value today, please like, subscribe, and leave your thoughts or questions below. And don't forget, for the detailed plan, check the link in the description. All right, happy building everyone, and I'll see you in the next project.